You're listening to Sonia Poulton on today's News Talk, TNT.
Joining me now for a roundup of some of the day's biggest stories is political commentator Andrew EBORN. Good morning, Andrew.
Glorious morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's always a thrill to join you on a Friday, Sonia.
It's a thrill to have you with us. We're both wearing blue. I sense this is something to do with the lightness of our being right now, Andrew.
I think that's right. There's synergy going on here. I love it. It's got to be good.
Absolutely. Right, let's crack on with these headlines. We're hearing a lot about Friday school absences. Apparently, work from home parents have contributed, so we're told, to an unacceptable rise in pupils skipping school on Fridays, according to the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan. She says 5,000 more pupils are absent compared to Mondays. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's horrendous. And when you look at the statistics, it puts it in perspective. They say that recent figures, if I remember right, about 157,000 pupils, that's 157,000 pupils, are missing more than 50% of their lessons, which is shocking. And they're also saying about 1.7 million miss more than 10%. And there's this whole WFH, the IHA, I hate acronyms, but working from home. And they say that's had a knock-on effect for people and pupils and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, in the UK, councils can fine people, but a lot of the times you've got to work out, well, why are they staying at home? And some of the things, if you look at holidays, for example, they're a lot cheaper while schools are in term. So you can pick up those bargains and so on and so forth. Not that I'm advocating it, but you've got to look at that sort of side. What I also love is just revisiting the whole education system anyway, because the power, I used to do a lot of work with Korea, and I was invited to South Korea to talk at one of their education summits. And these were in the early days of e-learning. And in South Korea, they do as much learning at home as they do in the classroom. Now, if that were happening at home, and I suspect it's probably not, that would be a good thing. But we do need to look at what are the main reasons we're getting these drastic figures and what can be done about it.
Well, so presumably I'm taking it that this is absolutely a hangover from working from home during C19. And I'm wondering whether the rise of work from home would have happened anyway, or it was just accelerated through C19.
Well, I actually think work from home can be a really good thing if you work out for certain jobs. There's certain jobs, obviously, you can't do from home. But if you think about people's commute time and you're doubling that every so on and so forth, it's a lot of time is wasted. So if you look at efficiency and mental health and the advantages of working from home, that's very good. But there are certain jobs where you require an interaction with people in order to do your job properly. And clearly those need to be looked at in an appropriate way. But I do think in the future, and as you know, I speak around the world as a futurist, in the future we will be doing far more work remotely. A lot of my work, not just in broadcast, is in many countries around the world. I do a lot of work in Japan, in America, in Australia, our good friends down under. And the reality is that you've got different time zones, and working at home in the early mornings is fantastic for that sort of side. But we do need to look at that. We do need to work about efficiency and work out the real reasons they're doing it. I suspect people are not staying at home because of efficiency, but because of a lot of people, it is just convenience and they don't really want to go in.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously you and I as adults, I see absolute multitude of bonuses of working from home. Not least, I can nip off in the afternoon, perhaps on a sunny afternoon like this, for a cheeky cold lager in my garden. Absolute bonus, love all of that. But we're socialized. So, but these children, for the most part, their education, their socialization at school was interrupted, wasn't it? Do you have concerns about the sort of long-term impact on these children?
Without a doubt, because education is not just about knowledge and regurgitating. It's about how you socialize, how you mix with your fellow human beings. And they've obviously missed all of that during lockdown when you don't get that chance to interact. So we do need to look at ways and to compensate. What's happened in the past has happened in the past. What we need to do is to learn the lessons from history. And I always say that the reason history repeats itself is because we don't learn those lessons. So what do we need to do better next time? Because I can guarantee there will be another pandemic. It wasn't the first pandemic in history. And if you look back at the wrongly named Spanish flu, which was in fact the Kansas cough, because that's where it started. But the reality is we had all those sort of things before. What lessons have we learned? And make sure we don't happen in the future. But people need, education is not just about inputting information. It's about learning how to socialize. And that is vital. And that's what they need.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is of great concern, no doubt about it. Talk to me about the secret services and migrants. This is an extraordinary story. So Keir Starmer is saying that he's going to be unveiling plans later that will use the intelligence services to combat the Channel migrants. Is this going to work, Andrew?
Well, I'll tell you what, Sonia, I had the joy, this is my hat trick of shows with you, and you will know that every single show, I said the focus for migration has been wrong. It needs to be on the criminal.
Yes.
Well, guess what? Guess who's stolen the Andrew EBORN policy? Because that's what they're trying to do. They're sort of turning around and saying, okay, we're going to get these security forces together, and they're going to start focusing more on the criminal gangs, which I think is absolutely right. Those are the people who need to be targeted. But it's more than that. You also need to tell people. Rwanda's always been a bad word because you've never really got off the ground, and we're starting to get people, but it's really tiny numbers in comparison with the whole sort of figures that we see. The reality is this, is that it's the criminal gangs we need to target, but we also need to deal with the hearts and minds of people, to tell people it's not paved with gold when you come over here. It's not going to be a fantastic life. You will be sent elsewhere. You will be processed in the appropriate way, and to basically discourage people from coming. The question which KEIR has yet to answer is obviously what would happen to the people who may, by that stage, if he does get into power, basically what's going to happen to people already sent to Rwanda? Are they going to be brought back again? He's talked about abolishing the scheme and so on and so forth. Millions have already been invested in it. But the reason for Rwanda, as I keep saying, is basically it's supposed to be a deterrent. That's the real test. The test is not how many people we send, it's how many people we stop. And part of that stopping is dealing, first of all, with the hearts and minds, telling people it's not going to work if you try to come here, but also to tackle those criminal gangs. So they've stolen my policy, but it's a good policy, so I don't mind too much.
Well, let's support that then. Dominic Cummings, we heard a lot about him during C19, of course. Boris Johnson's major advisor. I mean, we all recall the whole issue of did he break lockdown? Then his own press conference in the Rose Garden, which is practically unheard of for a political advisor. But he's now decided in his infinite wisdom that he wants to set up a new party. Do we need more political parties, Andrew?
Oh, we need more people like Dominic Cummings. I'm a big fan. I tell you, the Sultan of Spin, he won the last election, working out how to, well, Boris's big election. He worked on the sort of basis of how to appeal to the hearts and minds of people. He is the ultimate Sultan of Spin. And what he does, he works out, here's a key message. Here's how you do it. It's interesting, the press are now sort of bursting a blood vessel because every time Dominic comes out, they sort of want to bring up the thing about Barnard's Castle, pronouncing it correctly because it's up north. You work on that sort of basis and how he wanted to test his eyes, when that was what his excuse for breaking the rules at that sort of stage. Very interesting stuff. But he's a brilliant mastermind. I like the name of it, the Startup Party. I think he should call it the Party because that will remind people of everything on that sort of basis. But what do we need to hear are policies. And as I said, so at the moment, the problem with the electorate, it's a negative vote. Nobody's sort of turning around and saying, we really support this party. And if you look at the recent elections, I was looking in London, in places like Blackpool and various other places in the council elections, biggest winner was actually apathy. That some of the turnout was 32% or 22%. Yeah. And that is not good for the electorate. You've got to turn around, and I say trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. Trust in politicians is at an all-time low. What Dominic would be really good to look at is, well, what are the key issues? I think cross-party now, with people jumping ship, literally, from you've got Natalie Elphicke going from Conservatives to Labour. What it means is actually it's about the policies, isn't it, rather than the people. And you've got to work on that sort of basis. So I think Dominic could absolutely be a brilliant part of the mindset. He can focus the minds again, talk to the electorate, listen to what the electorate are really concerned about, but offer solutions rather than just having a go at each other every week.
It's interesting you mentioned Natalie Elphicke. Of course, she's going to be with Keir Starmer today in Dover when Keir Starmer is making his announcement. This is a big PR coup, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is. Dominic would be salivating at the prospect. He knows how to get a good PR coup. Oh, it's phenomenal. I have to say, however, the people of Dover, the good people of Dover, when they voted for Natalie last time, did they vote for her or did they vote for the party? And that's always a question. here, isn't it? Because I think they would feel a bit betrayed, those who voted and say, hang about, we want to vote Conservative, but who personally decide they can go to a completely different party. I think that's a bit of a betrayal, and I think that those rules should be looked at. But certainly it was a PR coup just before PM Qs. That's what happened. It was like a minute beforehand. They issued this press release saying she's defected and she's going to sit behind Keir Starmer. And obviously having this conference about migrants down in Dover, it's playing to all of those sort of points. But that has to be the question. Is it fair to the electorate? What's going to be different? And I'm working on that sort of premise.
Good points to leave us on, everybody. This is Andrew EBORN. He is, of course, a political commentator and a futurist and a jolly good fellow. Have a lovely Friday, Andrew. Thank you, of course, for joining us on today's News Talk, and enjoy your weekend.